Good evening. I'm Derek Robinson, and this is a special edition of our podcast series. Our special guest tonight is Bryan Kofron, who is a whistleblower for a covert social engineering program that he discovered while working for security industry specialists, a nationwide security personnel firm with a branch in Seattle, Washington. Bryan says the company uses DNA frequencies to access and control individuals and small or large groups of people, utilizing a collection of devices he refers to as total individual control technologies. So this time I'm going to welcome to our podcast this evening Bryan Kofron. So Bryan, if you could star 6 on your telephone once more so I can open your line. Okay, let me see if I can locate Bryan. There he is, okay. Okay, Bryan, you there?
Yes, Derek, hello.
Okay,
yeah, can you hear me?
Great. Yes, I can.
Great.
Okay, great. Welcome to our podcast, and we're so glad, everyone is so glad to have you here tonight and working with our community because it's really the first time we've had a whistleblower join us from the other side to give us some perspective. I mean, we've talked for so many years about, we've only had speculation, up to this point about what is happening, what the perps are doing, why they're doing it, and things of this nature. And we're hoping that maybe you could answer some of those questions tonight. Bryan, why don't we just start at the beginning of your term there of working with security industry specialists. Can you tell us, how you came to work for them at the beginning?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Derek. And I just want to say hello to everybody that's listening, and I want to thank all of you for your support. It's been overwhelming. It's really been humbling, and it is more than I ever could have hoped for. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I'm sure you can imagine how difficult of a decision this was for me to decide to speak out publicly, and the support I've received has confirmed to me that I did make the right decision, and of course, it was very much needed given the severity of the problem that's sweeping the country right now in terms of gang stalking and boys to skull. So I just wanted to take the time to say that. Yeah, I began working at SIS. Actually, I have friends and family members who are military and military intelligence. And through them, I had always heard, job opportunities. I thought about joining the Marines when I was younger, when I was 18. I'm 39 now. So over the years, it was something I had always thought about. And, of course, after 9/11, so many jobs were created in the defense industries, homeland security, and what a lot of people don't know about is within private security, domestically within the United States. It's a booming industry. It's one of the fastest growing sectors of our economy, as generally our society is being militarized, and generally that militarization is being privatized. And as a result, what you have is many, many corporations in the United States of America and private companies that are getting a lot of money from investors under the table to begin to set up what I describe as a security apparatus around and within the United States of America. And it is in that context that I heard of the opportunity to work for security industry specialists in Seattle, Washington. They're a private security company that is headquartered in Culver City, California. And through a friend, I heard that SIS was hiring. I heard they were hiring for security specialists. And given my background in education, which is actually anthropology and sociology, most people don't see how those two connect, but by studying human beings, you can really do well within the intelligence industry and within the security industry, because it is all about learning how to deal with and talk to and communicate with, and ultimately, from our perspective, secure human beings. And so it was through friends and family that I learned about the opportunity, and I started off, like everybody else, as a low-level security guard, minimum wage. I worked my way up through the company over time, and eventually was assigned to executive protection and threat assessment, risk management. And just to tell you a little bit about that, what my official duties were was to secure personnel, data, and property of VIPs that our company is hired to protect. So there's a whole lot of training that goes into that, and I became a security specialist for SIS, specializing in executive protection, also risk and threat assessment to our clients. Our clients are the companies or the individuals that we contract out with and provide services for. And it was in that context that I became aware of what I describe as a social engineering program and a research and development program that was being carried out by SIS and our clients in Seattle, the Amazon Corporation. And it was through moving up within the SIS hierarchy and working with more and more people as I was assigned to more and more assignments, I became aware of the existence of this program. And then little by little over time, I became aware of the extent of it. And it wasn't long before I realized how horribly out of control it was, how downright evil it was. Once I began to realize that SIS was experimenting on its own employees, my fellow security specialists, I was outraged. I later learned that my company was involved in a larger social engineering program that encompassed the entire city of Seattle. That aspect of the program was experimenting on the homeless population of Seattle, Washington, who were housed in DESC, Downtown Emergency Services Center facilities. And I later learned that they were indeed experimenting with, when I say experimenting, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior modification technology that is frequency-based and directed at a targeted individual to basically control their entire person. And it was by moving up even more that I realized that this experimentation was going on against the general population of Seattle. And then just the average man and woman on the street, upper class, upper class, and even the flat-out rich were having this technology used on them without their knowledge. As more and more information and details of the program became were made known to me, I became more and more outraged by it. And I spent a long time, because I had many friends within the security company. A lot of these people are great people. They're very good people. Not everybody involved in SIS is directly involved in experimenting on people. They're not all directly involved in gang stalking. I never was. I never partook in that. But I did partake in training that deals with tactics and protocols that are used normally for surveillance and counter-surveillance. But within that is all of the information and the know-how that you need to be able to gang stalk, and that is in fact what they are doing. And so over time I became outraged, and I tried to play my cards right, wait for the right moment. And when I really just couldn't tolerate it anymore, when I found out just how out of control it was, I decided to object to my superiors in person, confront them about it, and they made it known to me that...
Brian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get into that, I'd like to ask you a couple of things, if I could. What I wanted to say is sure. That what I was wondering as you were talking there, how are people selected? You said this technology encompassed the entire city of Seattle, how were people selected for experimentation? Were certain groups, certain neighborhoods selected at various times? Can you share with us how that was, how those decisions were made?
Absolutely, and that is a great question, Derek, and I'm glad you asked it. There's several answers to that, and I would encourage everyone to go to my website, gangstalkerwars.com, and check out my blog. It's titled 157 Roy Street, and there is a detailed article that I wrote that describes one aspect of the program and how targeted individuals are selected. That deals with the homeless population and how those people are selected. So you can check out that, also listen to my podcast. But within SIS specifically, what happens is they are experimenting on their own employees. So it's a long story. I'll try to get through it quick. But basically, people are selected from all over the country. We're talking other cities all over America. They are selected for many different reasons. Often it is because they are isolated. They don't have a lot of money, friends, or family. And they also tend to be people that are highly, highly intelligent. The aspects of this technology that they're interested in improving upon have to do with cognitive processes, processing information, and as a result, they want highly intelligent people to be targets of this program. They also tend to target people who are into what I would call alternative research. Commonly called maybe conspiracy theories, people that disagree with the government, people that are into researching things like 9/11. Also, they are interested in people that are interested in technology. I have found a high percentage of targeted individuals to be people who either are interested in or have information on highly advanced technologies, usually having to do with directed energy weapons and frequency weapons, the exact kind of weapons that we're talking about here that are used in voice to skull, and behavior modification, the works. There's many other aspects to the technology. But once these people are selected, they will have the entire gang stalking / voice to skull program run against them. This is detailed in my article, 157 Roy Street, on my website. But they will be organized stalk. They will have career sabotage programs run against them to ruin their job. They will have character assassinations campaigns run against them in their neighborhood. They'll be isolated from family and friends as those individuals are turned against them. And they will be isolated slowly over time using the technology itself, as many of the people freak out understandably when they at first don't know what it is. Oftentimes, they end up going to psychiatrists, and false diagnoses of schizophrenia, manic depression, delusional, paranoid are rendered against this individual. And it turns out that that's a loophole in the law that they are using to take away people's constitutional rights, as once you are deemed mentally unfit to care for yourself, i.e. you're depressed, delusional, paranoid, etc., they use that, the state or the federal government uses that as an excuse to come in and say that they have to care for you. So I would warn all targeted individuals out there, please do not go to psychiatrists and allow them to render a diagnosis against you, because that is a dirty trick they're using to take away the rights of people all over the country. Once the individuals are selected, and this is unique.
Bryan,
oh, go ahead.
Bryan,
Yeah, go ahead.
If I could ask you something quickly here. You said once individuals are selected. Can you tell me about the selection process? How are they located? I mean, is it through computer? Is it word of mouth? How are individuals, is it surveillance? How are they selected? Can you tell us?
That's a great question. I do not have direct knowledge of that personally in terms of an individual, how they are selected. What I can speak to intelligently, though, is that each individual fits the general profile that I'm describing. So they're highly intelligent. They are able to be isolated by whatever means. They normally have some sort of what I would describe as a free mind. They're people that aren't part of the crowd, so to speak, in the way that they think. They're outsiders. They're what the government would call dissidents or revolutionaries, or people that may be a problem. Some TIs have said that this kind of profile that all TIs fits is empowered individuals, and I would definitely agree with that. But I cannot speak to how they actually identify an individual person. I think the general profile that I'm describing that fits the targets of this program is something that is generated high up within the program. We're talking at the federal government level. We're talking at the highest levels of this social engineering program, where scientists from all over the country and all over the world, they're looking at someone's genetics, they're looking at someone's cognitive abilities, they're looking at someone's genes, they're looking at someone's DNA, they're looking at people's social situation, they're looking at people's career. I've been very surprised that so many PhDs are actually targets of this program, and they're usually PhDs that have gone against the grain in terms of what academia normally teaches, usually within the fields of science and technology. And the reason for this is because people running the program want to cover up certain technologies and certain aspects of science that can lead through to tremendous breakthroughs. These highest levels of science and technology are the sole purview of classified sectors of our government and military, and as a result, it is not, the opinion is that the American people do not have the right to this information, and is in the national security interest of our country to keep it classified. And so that is the answer to your question.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Bryan, since you sort of have had your finger on the pulse of this program, and I would totally understand if you can't specifically answer this question, but if you have some idea, that would be great. Would you have some idea about the numbers of TIs that are targeted in the United States? You say it's a nationwide program, and I totally understand if you really do not have a guess or an estimate of how many people across the entire country, but I just thought maybe you might have at some point come across some numbers that will give us some idea of how many are being affected by this technology.
Absolutely. It's a good question. I obviously do not have those exact numbers. What I will do, though, is take this opportunity to distinguish really quickly between the larger phenomenon of TIs that is usually a person in America that's being targeted by the technology and is being gang-stalked by members of their community, and the specific program that I am whistleblowing on. The specific program I am whistleblowing on involves the actual abduction of TIs from around America. They're put on a Greyhound bus and they are shipped to Seattle, where they are made homeless. They live in one of the homeless shelters where they are housed and experimented on with voice-to-skull technology, and then they are funneled into SIS to work as low-level security guards, where they are experimented on even more. So that is a specific program, and that's what I detail in my blog and my website. But because I am familiar with that program that utilizes the same tactics of gang stalking and the use of this technology against individuals, my knowledge on that program applies to what all TIs are going through. It's the exact same technology, and it's the exact same gang stalking tactics that are used against them. In terms of numbers, I know that there are right now at least 300 to 400 individuals in downtown Seattle that have been abducted from all over the United States, brought to downtown Seattle, and are being housed in DESC, Downtown Emergency Services Center, homeless shelters, and being experimented on 24/7. The numbers of SIS employees that have been experimented on, to my knowledge, is in the dozens. That's all I have direct knowledge of, though, about 24 to 36. And then nationwide, the estimates in terms of targeted individuals who still maintain some manner of autonomy and freedom and have not been brought to Seattle or enslaved completely by this, the estimates I have heard is anywhere from 1 to 2 million at the moment, and we're talking full-blown TIs that get the technology and are being gang-stalked 24/7. Those are the estimates that I'm familiar with.
Okay. Were these estimates that you maybe heard around the job or something like that?
Absolutely, yes. This is discussed very much in the open within SIS and with some of the liaison contacts that I had with DESC, Amazon, and then also members of the military that are in a civilian capacity. One thing you have to understand is that within the security business, most of the people working there are ex-military and ex-intelligence operatives. And many of them, in fact, are still active intelligence operatives and have simply been reassigned to domestic duty to work with a private security company, specifically for the purposes of carrying out this highly illegal program that's being run against TIs all over America. So full-blown TIs, what I would call people that are getting the voice to skull, the frequency, and the organized stalking, I have heard is between 1 and 2 million, and that could be completely off. But one of the things I'm concerned about is the technology as it's being researched and developed in Seattle utilizes emotion manipulation and behavior manipulation without the gang stalking and without the voice to skull aspects. And so this use of the technology can be done very covertly to the point where the person it's being used against will not know that this technology is being used against them. And that is one of my main concerns and one of the reasons why I want to bring more light to this technology and to this issue, because this technology could potentially be being used against tens to hundreds of millions of Americans every day. I've mentioned in some of my podcasts how there are field effects where they will not direct this technology at an individual, but create a general field of frequency in a geographical area so that everybody that within that geographical area is feeling the effects of the technology. It's more of a general application of the technology instead of an individual specific application of the technology. But when you consider that use of it and the fact that it is used for emotion and thought and behavior modification, then we could potentially be looking at many, many millions of people across the country that are under the influence of the technology today, right now.
Okay, was that when you say in a geographical area, are you talking about sections of the city? Are you talking about across the country? Can you give us an idea of that?
Absolutely, yeah. The area of the geographical areas that I'm familiar with are limited to the size of maybe a downtown area of a city, so that the frequency that's being emitted by the device will have an effect on a geographical location, let's say downtown Seattle. And so what they can do is within this general field, they can broadcast a frequency that affects human beings within that frequency field and can induce a general mood of, let's say, happiness or sadness, anger, agitation, peacefulness. And in this way, they can have an overall effect in the city. And I have seen this done, and it is remarkable how effective it is, because you will walk down the street of Seattle and literally see people all in a bad mood, all at the same time, and they do not know each other. And then you go over a block or two to a different office building, and you walk in, and the exact same thing's going on there. It's very, very concerning. So within that, then, that overall bubble or area of frequency where everybody, let's say, is in a bad mood, they can still inject what would be a individual-specific frequency to the targeted individual themselves, let's say the homeless person in Seattle that's being experimented on 24 hours a day. So they will be under the influence of the general agitated mood or bad mood that everybody else is in, and then they can more further be manipulated by the frequency that's being directed solely at them.
Okay, well, Bryan, with that, within that the confines of this frequency, would that affect crime rates, for instance, or auto accidents, or other types of incidents among people?
Absolutely, yes. That is exactly what the people running this program have in mind in terms of application of this particular feature. It is to, or at least it can be used to induce riots, for example, or stop riots. It could be very, very dangerous, and it's a great point you bring up about traffic patterns and auto accidents. I mean, this is messing with the innermost part of human beings, their emotions. And so you can imagine how irresponsible it is to actually manipulate someone into being in a bad mood, and manipulate everybody in town into being in a bad mood, and then they get in their cars and they drive around where their own safety and other people's safety is at risk. It's a huge, huge problem. And you can imagine the applications of this. If anyone ever wanted to start a riot, if anyone ever wanted to increase the crime rate, and then, of course, you can use it for the exact same opposite. You can use it to decrease the crime rate by making everyone passive. And that could have nefarious applications as well. If you want people to be passive and not pay attention and not take action, it can be used for that as well. So, yes, the mind is boggled by the possibilities in terms of what this could be used for.
Okay, so these are radio frequencies that are being utilized?
That's correct, yes. They're radio frequencies, microwave signals, the entire spectrum of radio frequencies can be used within a certain range to produce all sorts of different effects. So the way it works is a device broadcasts a radio frequency, let's say at an individual, and that radio frequency will hook up with the resonant frequency of the individual's mind or body, or in this case, DNA. And what happens is once the resonant frequency is found in the targeted individual and the broadcast frequency matches up with that resonant frequency, those two frequencies interlock, and they can be thought of as one frequency or one energy. And what happens is between the broadcast frequency and the individual that's receiving the broadcast frequency, once they are resonating together, a super highway of frequency along which information can be sent is created. And so you can think of it just like fiber optic cables that you use to send signals over the internet that connect people to the internet. It's the exact same thing, only a wireless application of that. And so once you have connected the targeted individual with the frequency and they resonate together, then you have a perfect avenue upon which to send and receive information back and forth. And that's exactly how they manipulate someone's thoughts. They send voices into someone's head. They manipulate their emotions. They manipulate their behavior. And then that's also how they receive back from the individual in real time the vital signs, the emotions, the thoughts, what the person's seeing, what the person's hearing. And then all that information, of course, is rendered on a computer elsewhere via software, and it can be monitored and tracked in real time.
So could they also influence people's thoughts? For instance, if they want to communicate a certain attitude or a certain way of thinking about a particular event, or say if a particular politician was running and he wanted to influence the election, could they send a signal that could influence people to vote for this particular individual?
Absolutely, yes. That is exactly what this technology can be used for. It can literally stop your own thoughts from happening and replace them with other thoughts by sending thoughts to your head. And it's so sophisticated that you cannot tell where these thoughts are coming from. There's no way to discern that they are coming from somewhere other than your own mind. So you can imagine how bad this would be for people that don't even realize this technology exists, and they're having these thoughts which they think are spontaneous, because being under the influence of this technology now, kind of having been on both sides of it, I am just amazed at the way it works, and I know that the thoughts that they beam into your head originate from the exact same place in your mind that your own natural thoughts originate from. So if I didn't know I was under the influence of this technology, then I would have no idea that anyone was influencing my thoughts at all. And that's exactly what it can be used for. It can be used to sway people in terms of their opinion, to make them go along with a certain agenda. It can be used to turn groups of people or individuals against each other for whatever purpose. And actually, this exact same technology can be used to not only influence the thoughts of someone, but also the voice box of someone. And it came to mind because you mentioned a politician. I heard that they actually used this on George Bush Jr. once George W. Bush, when he was giving a speech because he could not remember his lines. This is the type of thing that could be used to give a politician the words that they need to say so that they will come across and deliver the message in the way someone else wants them to deliver the message. So messing with people's thoughts is really, really concerning, and it is so advanced now that they can do it without people even realizing it's being done.
Well, that explains so much, actually, what you just said. Okay, great. Well, this is amazing because we all know about how they can influence our individual thoughts, but this is a whole different level when you're talking about influencing the thoughts over a geographical area. People within that range. This could have enormous implications. So how they do that, I'm not really clear how they can hide. Well, they have been experimenting with this. I asked that, but I know they have been experimenting with using groupthink, I guess you could say, influencing groups of people since the 70s, I know of, actually. And I just have not seen, the application of this technology or actually heard of it, obviously from this perspective, although I suspected it, of course. And it explains a lot of some of the elections that have happened lately. But anyway, but this is fascinating, Bryan, that you are presenting this to us, because we are aware of it over here, but it's a whole different ballgame to hear someone from the inside explain that it is happening and how it works and things like that. So this is fascinating. Okay, so are you aware? I know you speak of Seattle and how this is being utilized in various sections of Seattle. Are you aware specifically of other places where this technology is being applied?
Absolutely, yes. In terms of, first of all, the reason Seattle is important, and I think you mentioned how it's been researched since the 70s, and indeed going back before that. What I have direct knowledge of is, of course, the research and development program, aspect of this technology. And the thing that shocked me about it is it's not being done, in a secret military base somewhere, and it's not being done in a controlled environment where people are being kept safe and separate. The test subjects are kept separate from the general public so that nobody gets hurt. The entire city of Seattle has been turned into a massive proving ground for this technology, and it's being done right out in the streets. It's being used against people that are driving. It's being used against people that are trying to live in a city environment with the congestion and all the other people around that you have in that environment. And so the potential for accidents and things to get out of control and for people to get seriously hurt and indeed be killed by this is real, and it's happening all the time. And I think it just shows just how not only out of control this program is, but how completely unchecked the research and development aspect of our national security structure has become. They are completely immune to any oversight, to any consequences, to anything they're doing. And I just could not believe that this research and development part of this program was so advanced and was so widespread, and it was so out in the open in places like Seattle. And I encourage anyone that's in Seattle, please do go there, or that's near Seattle. Take a trip there and spend a week, on vacation. If you got the money to do it, I would recommend it, and visit DESC and visit SIS at 1415 Western Avenue, Seattle, Washington. Visit Amazon. Visit the Apollo, Nessie, Bigfoot, Cricket buildings. Visit these places and begin to look around and observe, and especially if you're a TI that knows the symptoms of the technology because you're an expert in it, because it's being used on you. You know just as much as I do. Well, maybe not the version that I'm aware of being used in Seattle, but you're getting a version of it, so you know what to look for. Go there and watch the homeless people. watch their behavior, look at their teeth, as all the people have one of the effects, I'm sorry to say, for TIs out there is this technology will actually radiate the teeth right out of your mouth prematurely. And I know in Seattle and elsewhere, people are in their 30s, that brush and floss every single day, that are having their teeth just fall out, sometimes whole. They're swallowing them in their sleep. They're choking on them. I mean, this has devastating effects on the physiology of the human being. But go down there and look. The signs are everywhere, and you will be fascinated, and your mind will be blown at just how out in the open it is. But I'm sorry, in terms of other places, I am aware of Aurora, Colorado. When I decided to blow the whistle and this technology was turned against me, a massive organized stalking effort was launched against me. And due to my training, I recognize the tactics that are used by these individuals, and it is high up. There is a military intelligence aspect of it, and I won't go into that any further other than to say that the people who are after me, who are monitoring me, are very, very good at what they do. They're the best in the world, and it's one of the things that has kept me so busy, and I've been so unable to really tend to anything else in my life. Even getting the word out is because I'm fending these people off and fighting back against them 24 hours a day. But I eventually ended up in Aurora, Colorado, right next to Buckley Air Force Base. And it turns out that this town as well is a major hub for this social engineering program. Aurora, Colorado is a town that has a large percentage of military personnel that live here. The adjacent base, also intelligence, families live here as well. When they're assigned overseas, this is where they would live when they're back on the home front domestically. And you can tell that this technology is being used on the people of Aurora, Colorado, many of whom serve in the military. And as I mentioned before, it's not only the general population of Seattle, the homeless and TIs, but this technology is being used against military families, people who proudly and bravely serve their country and sacrifice everything so that you and I can be free, or at least we were able to be free before this technology started being used against us.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's here as well, and there are some other cities. It seems to be adjacent to military bases. I've heard this from a lot of people, and I've noticed it as well. If you have a massive Air Force base near you, Navy as well on the coast, there's a good chance that some aspects of this program are being run at the adjacent military base and is being used on the towns and the people around that base.
Right. And I was just going to mention that, should people be concerned, those that live around military installations across the U.S. And I read a while back where the County of Los Angeles has the largest concentration of military-industrial complex industry in the nation, which corresponds to the largest concentration of TIs in that location. So there is some correlation there, we feel.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Absolutely.
So, and the reason I ask about various locations is because obviously there are security personnel countries across, the country. Every major city, and I'd say probably every city has some type of security firm, within their borders, which makes you wonder, are these, gang stalking groups housed within these security personnel companies? Is this one of the features of this program? Because I was looking on the internet the other day, and there are about 1 million security personnel employed by about 6,000 or so security personnel firms across the U.S. So that's a ready-made force of individuals who are gang stalking the population.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And I was not aware either of just how widespread the security industry was in terms of its numbers and in terms of its power within the United States of America. You're absolutely correct. And it's a great point you make. 1 million personnel. I mean, just think of that in terms of standing armies. Look up some of the numbers on active military personnel, in countries like Russia and China and the United States, the European Union, and you'll start to understand just how many, 1 million people are, and what can be done with that type of manpower in a situation like this domestically. So one of the things I think that is an advantage of the security industry, number one, it's private. So if you were going to roll out an army of gang stalkers across the United States to mess with people, to track people, to surveil people, to follow people, and to make their lives a general hell to live every day, then you would have to do it covertly. You would have to do it in a way that is not noticeable to the rest of society. And in fact, the tactics that are used by private security companies and gang stalkers at large are specifically designed to avoid detection, not from the targeted individual, but to avoid detection from the general public. And so it's a very interesting surveillance situation. It fits right in with other surveillance situations where they want the targeted individual to know that they're following them. And so in a normal surveillance situation, you do not want the person you're following to know that you're following them. They actually want the TI to know they're being followed because it has the maximum psychological impact. While at the same time, they need to do it in a way that your neighbors and your friends and your coworkers and your family do not know that they are doing this to you, because the entire point of the program is to convince everybody else that the TI is crazy. And so they need to surveil you and gang stalk you in such a way that other people don't notice that they're doing it. And so what happens is, I was actually with a friend when we were driving from Seattle, and I decided to leave. It was one of the last friends that I was able to have before this massive organized stalking campaign completely destroyed my life as well. And now I'm completely isolated as well. But I was driving with a friend, and we were being followed by people, obviously gang stalkers and military intelligence in my case. But they drive in regular vehicles. They're in modern trucks, SUVs, sedans, every kind of car. Many of them are Chevys. And if you're I think a lot of TIs have noticed this as well. Chevy seems to have some kind of a deal with these security companies. And I know, for example, my security company purchased most of their vehicles from a particular car company. So these are some of the things I noticed. But we're being followed by these people, and what they will do is the otherwise unmarked car will have military stickers on it. They'll have license plates that say Air Force. They'll have stickers that say Marine Corps or Army. And generally the personnel as well fit a general description. A lot of them have tattoos. A lot of them are young. A lot of them appear to be, very young, maybe a military type of a look, only with kind of a gangster type of a vibe to them. And I think that's for the purposes of intimidation. And I know that is one of the psychological aspects of what I learned at SIS in terms of gang stalking, is the image you're projecting is very important. It is scientifically planned down to the last detail to have a very specific psychological effect on the target. But anyway, we're driving and we see all these cars around us, and they all have military and Marine Corps, Air Force. And my friend said, is that the Air Force following us? Is that the Marine Corps following us? Are these people, military? And it's a very good question. And they are trying to give that impression that who's following you is active military. And, of course, that's not the case at all. They are private security contractors, or they are at least intelligence operatives that are operating domestically under the cover of being a private security contractor. And the reason they put those stickers there is to give the impression they're military. And so what you have a lot of times, the way they get license plates that say Air Force engraved on them is they are former Air Force. The way they get some of these insignias on their car, they are former Marines, and they are now retired. And after active duty, a lot of them need jobs, and they are being hired by the thousands each and every day to staff private security companies all over the country. And private security companies and private investigators, what they do is they investigate, they surveil, they follow, and they carry out covert intelligence and investigative operations domestically in a way that can't be protected. It's the perfect way to carry out gang stalking operations against TIs.
Okay, well, I have a couple questions here in regards to what you just said. could you give me like a profile of, say, the average worker at these firms that is doing this, the stalking and the electronic harassment?
Absolutely. And the number one rule in intelligence work and in security work in terms of at least people that are going to be surveilling the public is to remain undetected. And so in terms of a profile, they go out of their way to hire people of diverse ethnic backgrounds, each gender, all age ranges, more or less. There's obviously limitations if you're too old to be able to follow people on foot. But I've noticed a lot of the mobile details, a lot of the mobile assignments will be carried out by the more elderly of the private security contractors because they can't be operating in an inner city, for example, on foot, walking up hills and so forth. People with disabilities as well cannot do that, so there'll be mobile units. Static and mobile units are the two basic units you have within private security, and then they're assigned to different assignments. But yeah, as far as the profile, they are ex-military, they are ex-intelligence. Many people, like myself, have no ties to that, but they start off low in the company as a security guard, maybe executive protection, maybe risk threat assessments, maybe they have an IT background, so they get in that way. And then they're trained little by little to be led into the gang stalking and kind of the covert aspect of the company, which is involved in this social engineering program domestically to target TIs. And so what you have is, in terms of a street gang stalker, the kind of people that will have constant contact with the TI on a regular basis for the purposes of being known as gang stalkers to the TI, they will have a certain profile physically. The men will often be very strong. They work out. They're buff, for lack of a better term. They will have a generally intimidating demeanor. Although when you talk to these people, of course, they could be completely nice, very, very decent people, most of them. They're doing their job, and I don't think there's any way they have to get out of it because they all know if they come forward and they say something, then they're going to get gang stalked as well. And unfortunately, I'm proving that by the way that I'm being targeted and gang stalked, and the technology is being used against me. But this is the general appearance that they give, and so it's to be intimidating. And there's a very fine line between kind of the military intimidation and what you would call a gangster or a thug intimidation. And both aspects, of course, are there on purpose, and gang stalking has been designed specifically to have both aspects there. They want you to believe that your country hates you. They also want you to believe that you're in great danger all the time. And the thug, gangster aspect of the vibe that they're giving off is there specifically for that reason. And so you can start to see how psychologically this is going to have an effect on someone very, very quickly if they're under the impression that the military, their own government, and then a bunch of thugs are following and chasing them around the country. It has a devastating psychological effect.
Are certain individual types herded into this program?
That's a good question. There is a precedent, I will say, that I'm aware of for hiring people that have displayed a certain moral ambiguity concerning certain issues. For example, within certain private security companies in the Seattle area, there are a lot of ex-LAPD. In fact, when the Rodney King riots went down and a lot of the scandals that went on in Los Angeles, the LAPD went through several stages of reform, and anybody from LA, of course, will remember this. And the people that were forced out of LAPD ended up almost exclusively going to work for private security companies. So you can imagine the types of characters that ended up in private security companies when the LAPD didn't want them anymore. Also, people that have criminal backgrounds are often coveted for gang stalking type of assignments. The reason for this is that they do not mind, obviously, mistreating other people. They have what could be called a criminal mentality. But it's also important to note that despite the unsavory characters that are within this, the entire point of it is a hands-off policy. And this is very, very evil the way they're doing this. So, I mean, not in any way defending them. I'm making the opposite point. The hands-off policy is in place by private security companies and gang stalkers, the federal government, and everybody else involved in this, specifically to have the excuse and say, we didn't actually physically harm this person. We never struck them. We never shot them. We never hit them. We never did any physical harm to them. So everything that's done by this program is meant to have a psychological effect, and the psychological effect is meant to complement the effect that the technology is having on the individual, so that they are brought to a place in their life where they're isolated, they're broke, they're unemployed, they have no family, they have no friends, and nobody in the general public can track or trace anything that's being done to them because the technology is remote and it's wireless, and there's usually no physical signs left on the individual that anything is being done to them. And the interaction with gang stalkers within the community, there is no physical evidence that any gang stalking ever went on. They are specifically instructed, do not slash anyone's tires. Don't, vandalize their house. That is not the point of the program. The point of the program is to have maximum psychological effect and leave the minimal amount of evidence. And so you can see how this hands-off policy, and this is a standard term that's used within the private security industry in terms of what security guards and security personnel are supposed to do in terms of a threat. You are supposed to maintain a hands-off policy at all costs until you absolutely must intervene physically or with use of force. And so that's kind of an industry term that's been adopted by gang stalkers as a hands-off policy against the TI, so that when that person ends up in a hospital or ends up physically deteriorated, they can't turn around and blame the gang stalkers because they were never, quote-unquote, touched or physically harmed by them, even though all of the harm that's done to TIs is done by the gang stalkers, it's done by the federal government that endorses this program, and it's done by the technology, and therefore the gang stalkers, the technology, and the federal government is liable and responsible 100% for everything that's been done to the TI.
Okay, so that is something that we have noticed in terms of a general type of protocol in the program, that there is a certain boundary that they do not cross. They will harass a person, to homelessness, but they don't usually physically attack them.
Exactly.
Okay, so basically, the reason I asked you about the profile is because some of the stuff that they do is so sadistic to people, and I was wondering is this something that this could not have been something that they knew that they were getting into. You don't advertise to torture people. Do people, once they find out what the job entails, what is their attitude then? Do they really just go with the flow, or do they just do what they need to do to keep the job? How do they feel about what they do to people? Do you have an
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question, because you're absolutely right. Nobody advertises, on Craigslist that we're hiring you to harass and torture people. It's just not done. And I can speak personally for myself, and I can speak personally for the people I worked with at SIS, that when you do first find out what's going on, you are disgusted by it. You cannot believe that this is what's going on. There is also a very quick, almost a peer pressure induced acceptance of it that causes you to say, this is pretty cool. And I'm just being flat out honest here about the psychology that's going on within these people's minds. It's pretty cool. We're part of the group. We're part of the massive army of people that is going to be okay no matter what, because we're on the right side of this, because we're the people with all the power. We're the people that with ties to the intelligence agencies. We're the people with ties to the government. We're the people that are going to be okay no matter what, because, we are willing to violate the law to get away with whatever we want to get away with. And our superiors and our bosses are as well. So as long as we make them happy and we do our job, we're going to have a pretty good life. And I can tell you that this is exactly what is done to people almost immediately upon the revealing of what is really going on. They are offered a series of incentives. They're offered, first of all, acceptance into the group. They're offered acceptance into what will be the future of America, that you will be set, you and your girlfriend, or if you're married, you and your wife, your husband, your children are going to be taken care of. You're going to make a lot of money. You're going to have brand new cars every couple of years. Your kids are going to go to the best schools, and you are going to be connected, for lack of a better term. And at this point, it really does take on almost an organized crime feel to it, because what you're dealing with are people that are pleasing their boss in order to do something that is absolutely illegal. They're monitoring and harassing and torturing, and sometimes leading to the death of American citizens. They're violating their civil rights. They're violating their human rights. They're violating basic human decency. This is horrible stuff that's being done to people. And so you have to understand the psychological aspect that goes into convincing gang stalkers and people that are part of the program to do what they're doing. It is in fact, the psychological operation that is run against gang stalkers themselves and people that participate in the program is just as advanced, if not more so, than the psychological program that is run against TIs. It absolutely is. And so what you have is this very intense psychological program that's run. In fact, one of the things that I'm not sure people are aware of, but I'm trying to cover this on my site because I have direct knowledge of it: hive minds, voice to skull, emotion manipulation behavior, modification technology is being used against the gang stalkers themselves and against people in the program. And it is being used to assist them in doing their job, specifically to take away their conscience, specifically to take away their empathy and their sympathy for the individual, for the targeted individual, so that they don't feel bad, so that they don't feel guilty about what they're doing. They are many times intelligence agents and soldiers are trained to get the empathy and the sympathy out of their system, because you're going to be asked to kill someone for us. You're going to have to go on the battlefield and shoot someone, and you're going to shoot them just because we tell you to shoot them. And so a lot of the stuff that goes on in basic training and in terms of training intelligence operatives is designed specifically to make sure that people will pull the trigger when they need to. And stuff like human decency and love and compassion and empathy and sympathy and caring for your fellow human being does not enter into the decision-making process. And so the exact same thing is done within the program, within the Voice to Skull gang stalking program. And it is done not only by peer pressure and direct training, it is also handled by the technology that can manipulate the people's emotions to turn off empathy and sympathy and love and care and compassion, and to turn on what I call almost a mercenary hired gunman mentality. And the reward for going along with this is you get to be part of the social group. Look at the TI and how isolated they are. Look at how horrible their life is. Look at how sad it is. And every time I think about it, I start to choke up. It's so overwhelming. My heart just naturally goes out to these people, and I want to help them. But when you're the gang stalker under the influence of this technology and the influence of the peer pressure and everything else, you don't feel that. And if you do, the technology is going to take it right out of your system. But look at the TI, how isolated they are. You're not going to be isolated like that, because you're one of us. These are your people. Look around at all the other gang stalkers. Look around at the military and the intelligence services of the United States of America. Look at the local and state police. Look at the social workers. These are our people. You can date any one of these women that you want. You can date any one of these men that you want. Heck, we'll help you hook up. You can come and party with us and go out to dinner and do all the things that people do together. And that TI can't. That TI can't because of X, Y, and Z. That TI can't because he's on the wrong side of this. You're very, very lucky to be on the right side, and don't you ever do anything to mess it up, because you will end up right where that TI is. You're not going to be one of us anymore. You're going to be isolated. You're going to be gang stalked. You're going to be tortured 24 hours a day by the most horrific technology ever conceived by the mind of man, and you are going to die, grow old, and die alone. And unfortunately, now that I'm saying that, I have this self-realization moment. I mean, that's exactly what's happening with me. And I can totally and completely understand how that is a very, very effective strategy to get people to go along with being a gang stalker and to help cover up this program.
Okay, so people within the program feel protected from, the the effects of what they're doing to other people. So they feel that this program will continue ad infinitum, I suppose.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. And that's a great point as well, and thanks for bringing it up. And that's kind of the point. That's why I call it a social engineering program and not just gang stalking or targeted individuals. Excuse me. The entire point of this social engineering program that has been researched and developed for decades now, the full intent within the program, everything that's planned going forward, the day-to-day attitude of all the people, is that this program is going to be rolled out nationwide, and it will become the norm. Every man, woman, and child in America will be under the influence of this technology. Every man, woman, and child in America will be one decision away from having gang stalkers turned against them. And the people making these decisions, of course, are not answerable to the American people. They were not elected. They did not pass any test or go through any gates of initiations to prove that they're worthy to have this responsibility. They just make the decision, and you're a TI, and that's it. It's very much like that. Or go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Bryan. So this is really an important point you're making here. So rather than just the 1 or 2 million that you're talking about that are being affected, they are expecting to one day encompass the entire, 330 million people in the U.S. in this program?
Absolutely, yes. Every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America will be under the influence of this technology. And as you can see, going forward, what's going to happen is a dividing line is going to be drawn in America. And it's not going to be Democrat or Republican or black and white, rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, religious differences, whatever it is. It's going to be based on who is on the right and the wrong side of this technology, who is on the right and the wrong side of this program. And so if you are not a part of this program, then there is a very real risk that you are going to become a full-blown 24/7 targeted individual. And this technology at that point, when it is nationwide, will be used by automated supercomputer software programming that will manipulate the emotions and the behavior and the thoughts of everybody in the United States of America. And it can all be done remotely. It's very much like the microchip kind of tracking the New World Order, this entire, control grid that's supposed to be rolled out against the American people someday. And I'm here to tell you that it's already here. There isn't going to come a day where there's troops in the streets and tanks rolling down your neighborhood and riot gear and all this stuff. We might have isolated incidents like that. It might get like that every once in a while, but the true control grid is this technology, voice-to-skull, hive mind, behavior manipulation technology, and it can all be done remotely. It can be done simply by targeting you with the frequency, locking into the resonant frequency of your DNA and your mind, and in that manner completely track and trace and control you 24 hours a day. And so the dividing line is going to be between people on one side of this technology and people on the other. And so if you are a gang stalker right now, if you're in the private security industry, if you're in the military, intelligence, local state police, community watch groups, what have you, the reason so many people are joining into this, the reason so many people end up on that side of the fence is because it is the only game in town. There is one side, and you're either with us or you're against us. And so going forward, that's exactly what I had to think about when I decided to make this decision. That is exactly what went through my mind, and that's why it took me so long to decide what to do about this, because it is you are marking yourself. You are standing up and saying, hey, everybody, look at me. I don't like you. I don't like your program, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it shut down. And I was fully aware the entire time that I was thinking about doing that, exactly what was going to happen to me. They were going to torture me. They were going to destroy all my relationships with friends and family, and I was never going to be able to make a living again. And in my mind, it just came down to the victims. It came down to targeted individuals all over America who are suffering every single day, who are crying out for help, who are curled up in a ball in the corner in their bedroom in horrible physical pain and horrible emotional pain, and know that nobody will help them. Everybody calls them crazy. Everybody says, there's something wrong with them. Friends and family abandon them. Their relationships with their significant others are ruined. Their kids are taken away from them. And the homeless people in Seattle are now homeless. Some of the most brilliant men and women I've ever known in my life, as I got to know them, are now homeless, and they have no way to get out because the DESC is specifically going out of their way to make sure they can't get jobs and they can't find homes. So if a gang stalker wants to think about coming forward, this is the decision that they face. Are you willing to risk everything to try to save this country, to try to save the individual out there who's on the receiving end of this program and is suffering and needs our help? And I'm hoping that by me coming forward and doing the best I can and for surviving as long as I can, I will inspire other insiders and give them the courage and the hope they need to make that decision as well, and see if we can't start making some progress against this thing.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for sharing all this, Bryan. This is exactly the type of information that we need to go forward and speak to the general public about what's ahead for them, and this program that is in operation right now in all cities across the U.S., all major ones at least, and many of the smaller ones. One thing I want to mention, and before I open the lines to the callers, because I know it's getting late, but and I'm sure they have thousands of questions as well. But what I see here is that there is an element that is recruiting perpetrators for this program, and then there's also the other side where they are roping people into this matrix every day. Is this something that you can speak to? How it's, are these numbers that are happening every day? Is this a reality that's happening every day?
Absolutely, yes, and that's a great way to describe it. What is going on in America today is exactly what you just said. Some people are being recruited into this program, and some people are becoming the target of this matrix system of technological and signal intelligence and human intelligence control of the individual and of society. And that is exactly what goes on within not only the private security industry, but the program as a whole in Seattle. And what was done to me after I decided to come forward. The choice is very clear. You're either with us or you're against us. And all of the resources that they cut you off from when you're a TI, like I am now as a whistleblower, the jobs that you can't get, the coworkers that you can't make friends with, the relationships you can't have with people, all of that you cannot have is exactly what the gang stalkers are being promised if they join. That's everything you can have and more. We're going to give you money. We're going to give you access to the finest women and the best drugs and the best connections and the best jobs and the best life that you can possibly imagine. You made it, and this is your ticket to the top, and you're going to come to the top with us. This is exactly what these people are being told. It is exactly why this seemingly inexplicable behavior by our fellow human beings, this is why it's happening, because they are being promised the sun, the moon, and the stars. They are being promised the opportunity to be a part of history, to be a part of the ruling class, to be a part of a system that is not defined by appearance of camo and military machine guns and the American flag and God bless America and all the stuff that you associate with power in America. These are people that look exactly like you and me. These are people that are wearing their hats backwards and baggy jeans. They're people that are dressed in modern attire. They're people that rock the modern vernacular and slang. These are people that go to the same bars and clubs that we do. These are the people that go to the same schools that we do. These are the people that watch the exact same videos on the internet that we do. They are like us in every single way. They are Americans first and foremost. And because the nature of this program is so covert, that cover must be maintained at all costs. And so this is why you see kind of this profile of the people that are targeting you. They do not fit one particular profile. If you're in corporate America right now, I guarantee you're going to get corporate gang stalkers. And that is the whole point of it, that they have people in all levels of society, all ethnicities and socioeconomic backgrounds, and they can activate them one by one and group by group wherever you are in the country. And unfortunately, if you're on the wrong side of that, you have access to none of those resources, and you are looked at as an outcast and an outsider and someone who just can't be part of it.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing all of this, Bryan. And there's so much more that we could talk about, but at this time, I'd like to go ahead, since it is getting late, go ahead and bring in the callers so that they can ask their questions. I'm sure they have, many are chomping at the bit to ask you some things. So I appreciate your sharing, and these are, I guess, and I try to bring in foundational questions that we have wondered over the years, and you've answered all of them very well, and we appreciate the information you provided. So I'm going to go ahead at this time and switch modes here so that we can bring in the callers so that they can ask you questions if you have time.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to answer everyone's questions.
Okay, 1 second, please. Okay, looks like.
Hello.
Okay, we're at a mode now, guys, where you can, everyone's muted at the moment. However, you can self-unmute if you have a question for Bryan. Bryan, if you could start 6 on your phone, we'd like to have you unmuted at this time.
Derek, I have a question for Bryan.
Okay, hold on 1 minute, please. Let's get Bryan here first.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, there he is. Okay, now several of you are unmuted, so let's try to do this one at a time. And I heard Barb first. And well, go ahead. Who is that?
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Which one of us do you want to go first?
How about I go first?
Okay, go ahead. Is that Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Greg.
Okay. There's a few questions that I have. These people that are doing this, gang stalking, they're doing it on the pretense of that we're criminals, correct?
Correct. Really quickly, yes, that is the premise that they use to assassinate your character amongst gang stalkers. Usually there's no actual crime that's been committed, so you're not in fact criminals, but yes, that is the lie that's told.
Well, no, I know I'm not a criminal, but that's how they get them to do what they're doing.
Correct, yes. Normally there is part of the character assassination campaign that's run. There are lies, there are rumors that are spread about the targeted individual. And so in relation to the TI, all sorts of stuff is said about them. In every case, it's never true. So I can testify as a gang stalker on that side of it that all of the gang stalkers know it's not true. But it is used to generally degrade the character of the TI so that they're looked at, in general as a scumbag. You're absolutely right.
Okay. All right. And is there a production team that is in charge of that?
Absolutely, yeah. There is a command and control structure that is in charge of normally a targeted individual. So any elements of the program that need to be run in relation to that TI will be coordinated by a supervisor. And the supervisor will work with people that are in control of the technology on one side and then the organized stalking or the street theater on the other side. So you do have a very stringent command and control structure, The one that I was a part of course, involved SIS and SIS exclusively. But I have heard from others in general knowledge of the program that's being run around. This could involve people in local and state police as well as what I would call intelligence operatives or assets. They are private corporations that do stuff like talent agencies, recognizing talent, logistics specialists, technology specialists, and then coordination specialists.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thanks for
audio and visual production.
Nope. Let somebody else ask.
Okay.
I have a question. First, I want to say one thing about thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much first.
Okay, hold on. Barbara's asking a question. You can go next. Okay.
Okay,
please,
so first thing, I just wanted to make one mention of something I see happening up here, and it has to do with the police stations here are now putting in mental wings for the mentally handicapped instead of private institutions or anything like that. I don't know if that's happening anywhere else, but that was very creepy to me. In the major police stations, they are putting in mental wings. So they will be in charge, more or less, is what I'm saying.
I haven't heard that.
That's very scary. The question I wanted to ask is with the DNA, when you have somebody's DNA, you can then realize the tendencies they have towards certain diseases. Like Brad Pitt's wife went and had her breast removed because she had a tendency toward a certain breast cancer. With this knowledge, do you have any idea whether they're planning or already are, how do I want to say this, stirring up that particular tendency and creating that particular disease in that person?
Well, thank you. That was a great question, and thank you for the info concerning the mental wings and the police station. Absolutely, because that is exactly the pretext that they use a lot of times to get the excuse to target individuals is, obviously coming up with a false psychological diagnosis. So thank you for that. The DNA...
That's where I live. That's where it's happening.
Okay, great. Thank you. As far as the DNA goes, in principle, in theory, what you're saying is absolutely correct. Frequencies can be used to manipulate someone's DNA and then help to bring about what is a otherwise natural tendency within their genetics. So I can confirm that that's true, and I can confirm that within the scientific research community, that's being done right now. There's DNA-based research that's being done normally to cure diseases, obviously, but if it can be done to cure diseases, then certainly someone with more nefarious goals in mind could use it to engineer diseases and to bring things about. So that is absolutely a major concern, and I think that's one of the reasons we have to get a hold on the entire research and development apparatus of this country, the entire program, the way things are done in secret, and scientific advancements are siphoned off for military and intelligence purposes first, and then everybody else gets them. And the problem with that is exactly what you said.
Isn't being done yet?
Not that I know specifically, no. I cannot say that I have direct knowledge of that. What I can say, though, is that Amazon has billions and billions of dollars invested in a program that is used to study just those things. So if we wanted to find out who might have that knowledge, Amazon might be a good place to start.
Thank you.
Okay, we have to move on to the next caller.
Thanks so much for all your phone calls and your tapes and being here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Can you give us the names of your supervisors?
I have a question.
Okay, someone's asking a question. Go ahead, whoever that is.
Eric, which one of us can ask a question? You're going to have to pick us. There's a bunch of us that want to talk.
Okay, well, you can go ahead, Cece, since you're talking.
Okay. Bryan, I think you indicated that they won't hurt us physically or vandalize or sabotage our property, but I've had all of the above. I've literally been systematically maimed through workers' comp medical procedures. My entire back, my spinal column, from my skull all the way down to my tailbone has been sabotaged. I was, in fact, at a third lumbar ESI procedure, I was brutally forced under anesthesia, screaming for the doctor to stop. And when I woke up, my entire back had been maimed. Muscles were pulled off my back. I had injections throughout my back, my neck, my shoulders, injections into my liver, into my esophagus, all the way, I mean, prolific damage. I'm now disabled. So is that part of the military government experimentation, or was I placed there? Do you think, can corporations like insurance carriers or employers place their people into these programs?
Absolutely, yes. And Cece, I'm very sorry to hear about your condition and everything that happened to you. That is horrible, and I can't imagine the pain that you're in. And I do want to just clarify in terms of the hands-off policy, I am in no way suggesting that these people do not harm people physically. I'm speaking about obviously what is a general rule and a general outline that people follow. With specific people, they could very well cross lines and borders and do that sort of thing. In terms of the medical, this was done under surgery, so it could be that the doctors you were under the care of were very much not concerned at all with your well-being. It sounds like they really messed up the surgery, and when you woke up, you were worse off.
Intentional. This happened over a period of a year and a half, and it just kept getting worse. And I couldn't figure out why I kept getting worse until the last lumbar epidural, which was the third one. Even the physical therapist maimed me, but I had already filed a complaint at the California Physical Therapy Board, which was completely treated with disregard and disrespect. So I know that the state of California is involved in my stalking and the crimes that have befallen me. But I'm also hit with directed energy weapons. I get the dream manipulation, the dream interrogation. By the way, the dream interrogation has been a lot about my medical history. Have I ever hurt my back before? How I was hurt at work. So that's why either they want me to believe that my employer and the defense in my workers' comp claim is behind this, or I don't know what, because it sure seems like that's what they want me to believe. So I'm going with it, although I am a whistleblower and I blew the whistle on a previous employer a few years ago as well, and he told me that he had friends in high places that could make my life very difficult. And shortly thereafter, bizarre things started happening at my home, and at other places of employment. And that was before I ever got injured at work. But I don't know. I often say, God, I hope you don't let me die before I know who has done this, who is behind all of this garbage. So anyway, I believe that my targeting is corporate driven. And we know
that makes sense, yes.
And we know that the United States is a corporatocracy, so it makes sense. And you say that Amazon, what do? They offer up some of their employees as part of the protocol or the programs?
Absolutely, yeah. They actually have volunteer. They have dedicated entire buildings for the purposes of experimenting on their own employees and SIS employees. But absolutely what you were saying in terms of California officials and them being involved, those are exactly the people that would be in the program in place to mess with a targeted individual like yourself. So that definitely makes sense.
Okay. Thank you, Stacey, for your comment. Next caller, please.
Brian, I'd like to know if you can name your supervisor and other guilty parties.
Absolutely. You want my supervisor's name and guilty parties? Is that what you said?
Yeah, your supervisor.
Yeah, there are most of these names are actually available, but I will go ahead and name some of the people in SIS. Zimmerman, Brenninger, Venturini. CEO is John Spisak.
In what capacity?
S-P-E-S-A-K. S-P-E-S-A-K, John Spisak. And the command and control structure is such. There is a Dennis P. Hatton that is watch commander. that I worked under, the command and control structure is such that the direct supervisor, is contingent upon your assignment. And this is one of the ways that I think is an interesting point with how they kind of compartmentalize the programs within SIS and companies like this so that other people don't find out about it. There is not a company-wide command and control structure. There is a assignment-specific command and control structure so that when you are assigned to a specific assignment, you have an immediate supervisor that you report to, and that's it. And so the one supervisor, for example, might only be overseeing 2, 3, 4, 5 security specialists at a time. And so you have all these little cells within the company that are completely cut off from each other so that the lines of communication and information do not flow between different aspects of the company so that they can compartmentalize and keep classification on certain information that they don't want getting out. So I worked for many different people. I was assigned to many different assignments. But that was a very good question because it shows how it is organized.
Do you have any documentation? Or
I have a couple of questions. I just want to say thank you for your courage, first and foremost. Number one, you were talking about how they tried to make everybody into being a scumbag, so to speak. And but most of the people I've spoken with are women, and there's women that are beautiful and attractive. There's women that could be your grandmother. And you say they try to make everybody, come up with some stories or whatever. How do they hurt, women and grandmothers and kill people's pets?
Isn't that horrible? Yeah. Well, first, thank you for your kind words. And I do want to say that I have heard estimates up to 70-75% of targeted individuals are, in fact, women. And it absolutely breaks my heart because I can't understand the mentality of men or women as well that would actually prey on and torture and abuse a woman, a single woman. It's just horrible. These people have children, and you're absolutely right. They're tearing families apart. They're doing it to children as well. It's completely out of control. But in terms of smear campaigns, character assassination, what they have is thugs, and perhaps, there are elements of this that even I'm not aware of. But I am aware, for example, that my life has been threatened. I am aware that people are killed within this program all the time, and they bring in highly trained specialists to do that. They usually have intelligence connections. So in terms of the real dirty work that's done, there are people within the program that are capable of doing that, and they do it because they get paid a lot of money, and they do it because they have been guaranteed by the higher-ups in the program that they're going to get away from it. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd just like to say if you guys could keep your questions to 1 or 2, and please.
I have a question.
We have lots of people waiting to talk. I think Peter was talking first, and you can go next.
Okay. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Go ahead, Peter. You have a question? Yes.
Okay. All right, so what I'm curious about is, number one, Lockheed Martin's a big corporation there that works with the government. Are they the ones running this?
Not to my knowledge, no. In fact, I do not have any direct evidence of Lockheed Martin based on the social engineering program that I have direct knowledge of in Seattle, Washington. What I can speak to is the involvement of defense contractors in general. I have heard, of course, through people like Karen Stewart, that Lockheed Martin does employ organized stalkers of their own in 47 of the 50 states. I have not been able to independently verify that with my sources, but it certainly makes sense. What I do know for a fact is, of course, defense contractors are involved in the research and development of the technology going back decades. And if anybody wants to learn more, I would suggest looking up patents into things like microwave auditory effect, the voice-to-skull, the behavior modification, frequency weapons, directed energy weapons. Go back to the work of Nikola Tesla and look on down the line throughout history to see who the scientists were that were working on this, and then see the connections that they had to certain aspects of the military-industrial complex of our country. So defense contractors are involved. I am sorry, though, I don't have direct knowledge of Lockheed Martin.
Right. Now when you talk about, the pulses or the pulse modulation that affects the population, that's either called brain entrainment or frequency following. All right. Are you aware of any antenna arrays that are doing the broadcasting?
This is interesting. I'm glad you brought it up. It is one of the most classified aspects of the technology in terms of my knowledge of it and the average security specialist knowledge of it. You have things broken down basically into a technical department and what I would call a personnel department. Personnel handles the actual monitoring of the technology and the gang stalking. You then have the technical side that monitors the infrastructure, the actual building of devices, antennas, cell phones, towers. So I do not have direct knowledge of that. But I do know that it does utilize antennas, radar, and cell phone towers. And I think radar, I know for a fact, is being used for military bases. I know some of the antennas are being camouflaged within buildings, other structures. They have entire walls and structures built around them just to hide the existence of the antenna. So you can see the effort that goes into covering up the locations of them. And as a result, they're the most classified part of the program. And I do not know any specifics on that other than they're out there and they are everywhere already all over the United States because this system is operational countrywide.
Okay, next question, please.
I'm an electronic engineer. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a countermeasure for technology like that, and it breaks down a biorelevant feedback loop. And I've actually cured or helped over 130 people. And it's a countermeasure I give out for free if you happen to need it.
Wonderful. Yes, yeah. And in fact, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I would love to talk with you more. What was your name again?
David Case. And if you want my phone number, you got a pen real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
573-300-1579. And what you were talking about, I'll say that one more time, 573-300-1579. And the way you were describing, they're setting up a standing wave with the DNA and then probably doing slight variations in the phasing. And I noticed that tinnitus is pulse code modulation. And that's what my CD has on it, is many forms of pulse code modulation. And I invented it with two 555 oscillator chips. And it makes a sound that has never existed before, and it confuses their technology and breaks down that phase-locked loop that you were talking about.
That is brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, David. That's exactly what we need is electrical engineers like yourself coming up with stuff like this. It's the only hope we have because right now there aren't many defenses against the technology. So you just made my day. Thank you very much. I'd love to try it and see if it really works, and we need more of it for sure.
Okay, great. And who was that had the question?
I have a question. This is Kathy from Arizona.
Oh, Kathy, hi. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, Derek. My question to you, and thank you very much, Bryan, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Have you ever heard of the terms AMP project and Rubicon project?
I'm sorry, what was the second one?
AMP project and Rubicon project.
Yes, I have heard of them. I am not an expert or have any in-depth knowledge at all.
Okay, because I keep getting those terms sent to me. And like the other day, I woke up and my front teeth were gone.
Oh, no.
You know, just all kinds of weird stuff's been happening lately. You know, I get a field of daisies showing up on my iPhone. You know, just stuff like that. And
absolutely, yeah.
If I lisp, it's because I haven't had my teeth fixed yet. But
there you go.
Yeah, I've been in this program since 2006, and I've been able to survive it because I sort of learned about it very early on by Stop It in Europe. So I was able to get some knowledge. So I have not ever been accused of being insane or anything like that. But I have had the police department and so forth treat me in a very weird manner. But anyhow, I just wanted to know if you were familiar with those terms, and how about people cooker?
No, yeah, other than general terms, I am not familiar with that specifically having to do with this, but hang in there. It's great you've been able to endure this long. I can't imagine. I hear from people all the time, 10, 20 years, they've been targeted individuals, and I can't imagine. So just stay strong, and I'm hoping we can somehow make some progress and get some relief for people out there.
Okay, more questions?
I have a question.
I've got a question.
Okay, hold on.
I have a question, too.
She spoke first, and then you guys can go next. Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to know, I have kind of come to realize recently, I know that UPS is involved myself.
Okay, we can't hear you. Can you speak up a little bit or speak directly into the mic?
Yes.
That's better. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. What do you know about the involvement with UPS? Do you know much about that?
I do not, other than I have heard that. I do know that the connections between the program participants are usually at the corporate level. So we're talking about the board of directors, we're talking about the CEO, chief financial officer, these types of people. I do know, I can't speak generally on specifics of the program, that what is done within private corporations, because it is so easy to protect proprietary information, they are able to siphon off a part of their company, and then within that department that is highly insulated from the rest of the company, they will have an aspect of their company cooperating with the program at large. And then it is from that hub within the company that they relegate resources that could help the overall program. And so one thing that some people have a hard time figuring out is, how are all these people involved? And oftentimes it's not as many as it seems. It's key companies and key departments within different locations that can mobilize information or vehicles or personnel very, very quickly to respond to the needs of the program. And I have heard UPS, but I have no direct knowledge of that.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Brian, this is Alec Rafter. I've got a couple of questions.
Hey, Alec.
Hi, how are you? On the some of your videos or your podcast, you mentioned that sci-fi is what we call v2k. You mentioned that the artificial telepathy people are connected to hive mind. With remote neural monitoring, that's what we call the process of them hearing our thoughts and looking through our eyes. I want to know what you call it. And my last question is, do you have any documents that you could put online regarding this program that we could all access?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Alec. Remote neural monitoring, in terms of the terms that I call it, much of it is slang derived from security industry specialists, so it's kind of like a street-level slang that we use for it: hive mind, voice to skull, remote neural monitoring. There's some rather coarse terms that we use as well that are very descriptive but not very scientific. But the remote neural monitoring is one that is, I think, the main feature of it, that they are able to get the information from people. And so that is the aspect, I think, that is going to be used very covertly against everyone in the country, to read people's thoughts, to see what they are thinking, and then determine whether or not they're a threat to the power establishment or to the individual motivations of companies or local officials or whatever it might be. Also, thank you for the information. I spoke with you earlier, and I really appreciate your help on that. In terms of documents, I do. I also have people that I am in contact with within the industry, potential allies that are sympathetic to our cause and are behind the scenes waiting for the right moment, that are behind the scenes hoping that the general public will become more aware of this issue and will give them the impetus that they need to start to move behind the scenes to make progress against it. There are a lot of people that are against this program and that support TIs, but they are in highly, highly classified positions. They are threatened if they speak out, and they also, of course, have family and friends to think about. So we do have allies there, and I do have documentation, and I am planning on releasing it. I do not know when, because I'm also planning legal proceedings against the federal government and possibly my former employer, DESC and Amazon, and my lawyer is advising me at this point not to release that, but depending on how that goes, very soon I may be able to do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And thanks, Alec. Hi, Alec. Okay, more questions for Bryan?
Hey, Bryan, question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so I guess the lady went first. Okay, who's there? What's your question?
Me? Yeah, it's me, Derek, it's Carrie. I had a question. Do you see yourself as stepping up and testifying for some of the TIs that are gathering evidence to go to court?
Absolutely, yes. I would be willing to help anyone that is bringing legal proceedings against the program or against the government. That is my main goal in coming forward, is to attack this from a legal perspective, and I would be happy to lend my testimony or my efforts to anyone that's pursuing that goal.
Okay, one other thing really quick. Are you a victim of V2K?
Yes, I am. I am a victim of V2K, emotional, the works. I have got a beta version, I believe, of what is going to be rolled out against TIs in the next couple of years. My company was involved in a research development program of kind of the next generation of voice-to-skull and the frequency weaponry. And because I knew these people and I decided to blow the whistle on them, they gave me the most nasty version of it. It is highly, highly advanced. It's one of the reasons I've had a lot of problems getting relief myself, is because I'm dealing with something that is, I think only the military would have and know about in terms of its advanced state. So yes, I am getting all of it 24 hours a day. I'm currently homeless. I've tried 5 other jobs since I resigned from SIS, and I'm under constant torture, surveillance, and gang stalking 24 hours a day.
Well, what sort of things are you getting V2K? What kind of things are they telling you?
That is interesting. The main one that they repeat all the time is, please be quiet, in not so nice terms, or we're going to kill you. They tell me that everybody is against me. They tell me all sorts of stuff. One of the people, the lady that mentioned that the state of California was involved with her medical problems where she messed up her back, and the voice of skull was telling her that it was her corporation or the company she was working for. I hope I get that right. But that's what they do. They beam into people like me's heads all sorts of stuff to try to turn people against each other, to turn companies against each other, individuals against each other. And so what they do to me, I think, is very similar to what I've heard from a lot of TIs. They'll turn TIs against their family. They'll turn family members against TIs, for example, and coworkers, and that's what they're doing with me. They're trying to manipulate me. They're trying to turn me against former employees, employers, people I used to work with, family members, friends, people I'm meeting online, and it's just a constant 24/7 back and forth. Don't trust this person. Do trust that person. Don't trust this person. Do trust that person. Don't you dare try to work again or we're going to kill you. Don't you dare try to contact this person or we're going to kill you. Don't do this or we're going to slander you and smear all sorts of stuff all over the papers. We are very disappointed in what you decided to do. They have been sending stuff into my dreams as well. It's constant 24/7, and luckily because of my training, because I know all aspects are technology-induced, and because I have a bit of training in gang stalking as well, my response to it is always, number one, I know who it's coming from. I know who these people are, so I'm not listening to any of it. I go out of my way to judge things for myself and come to my own decisions. And then when it comes to gang stalkers, I just gang stalk them back. I'm only one man out here, but I try to take them on and fight fire with fire and stand my ground and just at least try to maintain the status quo so I don't slip further down into the darkness, so to speak, where they're trying to put me.
Okay, guys. As Bryan kind of hold on, Dutch. Part of this podcast is to help Bryan because he's living in his car, and we are trying to raise a few funds for him. So, if those of you that can, if you could go to his website, which is gangstalkerwars.com. and scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there's a PayPal donation. If you could drop him a few bucks, that would be great. That would help him because he's trying to relocate from the area that he's in because it's heavily infested, and they're trying to intimidate him, and he's already unsure. At least my impression is he's unsure of the situation, and he's feeling more closed in every day and threatened. So he does need to relocate from his location, and hopefully we can find him someplace where he will be in shelter. Someone has a home. He has one offer already, but, we'll see what happens. But he needs to be indoors somewhere and not, being in his car and being vulnerable and having to keep, driving and moving and running from these guys and evading them. So he needs a place of safety.
Okay. Derek, this is Greg. Before I got cut off earlier, I was going to say that if he ever comes to Kansas City, he can stay here for a while.
Great. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that.
No, I mean that. I do have a RV that's parked at RV Park, where I store it at, but we can easily move it to an RV park, and you can stay in that.
Okay. Well, that's a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. He'll be waiting here.
Derek.
Yeah.
Dutch, let him know, too, I offered that he can come to my place. I'm in Redding. I'm kind of close to where he's at. If he's up, in Washington or Oregon, I live in Redding. He's welcome to my place to stay. I wanted to ask him a question. Mine seems a little different than the usual pattern. I get clicks every day if I move an arm, if I move a leg, if a truck drives by, if a car drives by, if a guy goes by in a wheelchair to the mailbox, it clicks. It breaks a beam or a wave of some sort. So I'm under 24/7 surveillance. No matter which room I go in, click. Shut the door. There's a click against the door so they know when I open that door that I'm going out that door. Is that a new technique that they're going to start using soon, or is that an old technique? Do you know anything about that? And I'm a twin, too. I'm the last one of the family, but, so do you know anything if that's a new technique or an old technique? But it's been 18 years for me, and they haven't stopped the click sounds. I've got them recorded on DVD, me pointing them out. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there. So is that something you're aware of that is used commonly on a lot of individuals, or is it rare?
Okay,
can you come back?
Thanks for your question.
Yeah, absolutely. The clicks are something that I am familiar with. They are not integrated in the version of the technology that I was dealing with in Seattle, and they have not been used against me. But the utilizations of sounds like that could be a marker within the program oftentimes that you're getting on your end. Oftentimes that's for organizational purposes on the part of the people that are running the technology. I know sounds are inserted for that. And it could also just be random clicks that are associated with a part of what you're getting. But it is interesting that you're a twin, and I wanted to comment on that because the DNA and genetic aspect of this is very, very important to these people. And part of the social engineering program that I have direct knowledge of is all about genetics and the modeling or the engineering of the future of human genetics and trying to push humanity in a certain direction. They're very interested in strong genetic people that are immune to diseases, and twins, of course, if anybody looks it up, I won't get into it now, but are unique in so many different ways. It is one of those weird parts of nature that these people are very fascinated in and can lead to advancements in science and technology and all sorts of other things. So yeah, the fact that you're a twin really jumps out at me, and they are very, very interested in twins. I do know that.
Yeah, I'm Lithuanian, German descent, Lithuanian. I've never really been sick in my life. I've been injured a lot. I heal very quickly. And so I know I've been blessed with healing, but now they've taken some of that away. I still heal pretty fast, but they put holes in my testicle. I don't know if they inserted something. They're always messing around there. I don't know if it's removing sperm or to use for something else. They put holes in the bottom of my feet, 10 on each bottom of each foot, 10 or 12 pus hills on the bottom of each foot and one on each knee. And they use those areas quite often. daily, 24/7. I just have an idea that they're removing sperm from me because of my health. I'm 74, and no one ever says that I'm 74. They think I'm about 50.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, you're obviously very healthy, and they would be very interested in that, especially because you're able to heal quickly. Also, genetics. I know there was a lot of interest in German, Czechoslovakian, Poland, Eastern Europe, and Europe was something that was generally of interest to the people in the program as well. So, yeah, thank you for that.
I got one more question. Hang on.
I'd like to ask a question.
Okay, Bryan, you keep talking social engineering. It appears to me that the social engineering that they're bringing in is pure hate. It's pure hate. They're doing things to individuals around you, neighbors, family members. What kind of social engineering are they trying to attain?
Absolutely. Very good question, and you're absolutely right. It is pure hate. These people have no regard for common human decency. They have no regard for the value of the individual life of the human being. The overall goals of the social engineering program, as I just mentioned, eugenics plays a big part of this. When I mean social engineering, they are engineering society, and they are engineering social aspects of society. So they want to engineer the actual human makeup of society itself. They want to engineer the actual organization of society in terms of a hierarchy of power and companies, and then they want to engineer the individuals themselves. And so what their vision is total control. It's very much what many people have heard in terms of predictions of the future, only this is exactly how they're going to do it. They are collecting sperm and DNA from people. They are actively trying to I'm sorry, I'm getting some feedback on the line here. But they are actually trying to engineer certain genetic stock to go forward into the future so that we have from their perspective, a healthier humanity. What it is eugenics. What it is racism. What it is total and complete control of every individual in society for the purposes of being able to dominate over them and the purposes of being able to control every aspect of their life. And their attitude towards it is that the world is a video game, and they're just sitting back messing with real people's lives from the point of view of people that don't care at all. It's sick, it's disgusting, it's absolutely evil, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal, and it needs to be stopped immediately because we are all in grave danger because we live under these people. We're in a country where these people are in power, and it has to be stopped.
Okay, Bryan, hold on just a minute, please. Bryan, it is a little bit after 9 where you are, and how much time would you say we have?
I can go another 10 minutes or so.
Hey, Derek?
Okay, guys, about 10 minutes. Okay. Yes, who has a question?
From Puerto Rico, I wanted to ask you if why are a lot of people moving from islands back to the state right now? Can they move people in mass?
That's a very interesting question. Or go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because Puerto Rico right now, we're having like an economy situation. Like everybody's leaving the island. And I've been stalked from Florida to Puerto Rico to Panama to Orlando. And everywhere I go, you find people that they're moving from one side to another, even at church.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and that could be an element of social engineering because what they're doing is they're maneuvering people for whatever is to come. They want the demographics they want in each population, in each area, not only of America but the world. And I know it's been described to me, like Seattle is often described as, bringing people together 2 by 2 as if they were boarding the ark. And what they mean by that, like the ark that Noah got on for the flood, what they mean is an ark in terms of genetics and social engineering going forward, that this is kind of the base foundation from which all of society will be built in the future. It's their vision of the future. And so what they're doing is they're starting it out locally, and they're getting total control of a certain area, a certain city, whatever it is, and then they are expanding outwards. And I think one by one, city by city, country by country, they plan to roll this thing out across the world eventually. And the ethnic makeup of the population itself, the genetic makeup of the population itself, health-wise, immunity to certain diseases, this is exactly what these people are interested in. And the implications of that is they know something's coming that I don't. I have no direct knowledge of that, but this is exactly the context within which these people are operating.
I've got a question.
Yeah, I know what's coming.
Can I say
I have
something?
a question. Okay.
I have a question too.
And I have a question too.
Okay. I have a short question. All right. Go on. Go ahead with the short question. Make it quick.
Okay. When you said that people were being abducted to Seattle, can you tell me how that was accomplished?
Absolutely, yes. I'll try to do this as quickly as possible. If you want a detailed description, please go to gangstalkerwars.com, click on menu, and click on 157 Roy Street. There's a detailed article about it. What is happening is targeted individuals, once they are isolated, once they have no more family and friends, once the organized stalking has cut them off from being able to make a living and they have no resources, with the cooperation of companies, property management companies like Graystar, they are forced out of their homes. Oftentimes there's a lot of dirty tricks being played by city councils and zoning and real estate lawyers and attorneys that are working against these people. They get them out of their homes, they get them out of their apartments, and they are under the influence of hive mind voice-to-skull technology. The hive mind and voice-to-skull technology is used to influence their decision-making once they have no more resources left. And I am aware, in the case of going to Seattle, the homeless people there are brought there by being told and manipulated to buy a Greyhound bus ticket and go somewhere. And so if, let's say they have $500 left in their accounts and they got no home and they've been completely isolated by the gang stalking voice-to-skull program, they will be influenced by the technology itself to buy a ticket, get on a Greyhound bus, and go to Seattle, take a ride to Seattle. While they were on that Greyhound bus, there is a group of thugs that includes every single person on the bus. They work for the program. They work for people like private security, intelligence services, and ex-military to completely isolate this individual. While on the bus, they are robbed, they are drugged, they have false confessions are beaten out of them. And the reason they do this is so if the person ever thinks about going to the police, they're told the false confessions are going to be used against you in a court of law and you're going to jail. They are driven to Seattle, and on the Greyhound bus, they are then dropped off, completely drugged, completely disoriented, oftentimes starving. They have no money. They're robbed. They no longer have a driver's license, Social Security, credit card. That's why I'm blowing the whistle on this. These people need our help. They are dropped off on the side of the road outside the city of Seattle in the freezing cold and rain, and they are forced to walk into the city of Seattle. Once they get to Seattle, they are greeted by street theater and organized stalkers who are on the streets of Seattle, hurl insults at them, generally psychologically torture them until they make their way, with the assistance of voice-to-skull and people on the street, to DESC, the Downtown Emergency Service Center in downtown Seattle, 505 3rd Avenue, Seattle, Washington, 98104. And they are given shelter in that homeless shelter where they are experimented on mercilessly with voice-to-skull behavior modification technology. They have hive mind aspects of voice-to-skull tested on them where they participate in street theater with other people in the general area. 20, 30, 100 people sometimes are under the influence of this technology to practice tactics and protocol of hive mind utilization of the technology for organized stalking that will eventually be used outside of Seattle against American people all over the country, individuals like you and me. And so then they're kept in this homeless shelter, and this is the pool of people, these homeless people that have been abducted from all over the country. This is the pool from which SIS selects its low-level security guards to then go and man a podium in an Amazon-owned building where voice-to-skull hive mind technology is used to experiment on them while at work, usually to fine-tune the visual aspect of the technology so that they can use it for things like facial recognition of high-placed corporate power figures within corporations, to identify facial features, to read computer screens from across the room, to read what is on someone's cell phone, and to read documents they may be carrying. And this is all done against the will of this test subject. Our fellow human beings are being experimented on by these people.
Okay, thanks for that.
I'd like to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead with your question real quick.
What do you know about the reptilian agenda? Since I've been a part of this, I've had alien experiences twice, 2 UFO experiences.
Okay, he probably couldn't answer the alien agenda question. And someone else with a question quickly. Please.
My name's Tom. Can you hear me? Can I ask a question?
Tom, we can hear you with the question.
Okay. Well, this is just amazingly interesting, Brian. I'd like to, see. I'd like it to see this get out into the public, and I just thought that William Benny is an NSA whistleblower, and he's sided with TIs, and he's doing a survey, and I think it would be good for you to become part of that, and his survey, and even the possibility of somebody like Edward Snowden or Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. This would be good information to give to them, and I think by siding with William Binney, I think it would be very credible. I'm just wondering how you would feel about that type of connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess. I was just wondering how you would feel about connecting with those type of ex-intelligence people.
Are you familiar with William Binney and Kirk Levy, Brian?
Yes, I am. Yeah, thank you, Tom, for your question. Yes, I am, Derek. I am familiar with William Binney. I do not know him personally. I have not spoken to him personally yet. I have had third parties try to get us in contact with each other. So that is something I'm definitely open to in the future, and I will be pursuing that.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we have a minute left.
That's something I'd like to say.
Okay, go ahead, Terry.
Hi, Brian. My name's Terry. I run a website called StopGangStalkingCrimes.com, and I'm really pushing hard for all TIs to get out and work very hard at bringing public awareness up by passing out flyers, wearing T-shirts, signs on their autos. What do you think about that? Do you not think that's the drive that we should all be working on right now, is bringing up public awareness from the ground up?
Absolutely, Terry. Yeah, that's a great idea, and I will check out your website for sure. I agree 100%. I think the way to fight this thing is to get out into the streets, to make T-shirts, pass out pamphlets and flyers. I think the way that they are controlling this is they're keeping it on the Internet, and the only people that find out about it are people that already know about it and go on the Internet to look up information. That's the way I deal with gang stalkers. I do it face-to-face out in the streets, and I don't try to hide anything. I'm very upfront with them and anybody else who might be listening, who these people are and what they're doing. And I think we need more people like you doing that. So I will definitely support your efforts and try to spread the word to get people out there more than they are now, and hopefully we can make some progress.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Finn. Looks like we've completed our interview with you, Brian. And thanks so much for, again, for being with us at this time. And this is a very important interview, lots of very good information. I know it is being recorded, so a lot of people can make great use of this information that you've shared tonight, Brian. So hopefully at some point you'll be able to return, because there are lots of, obviously there's lots of unanswered questions. But if you're willing, maybe you can come back sometime and spend some time again with us and answer a few more questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to, Derek, anytime. Just let me know.
Okay, great. Appreciate you being with us.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Talk to you later.
Okay, be in touch. Bye-bye.
Love you, bro.
All right, bye-bye.
Hello, Derek.
Yes, hi.
This is Sally, and I didn't get a chance to break in to ask this question, but it seems to me that this apparatus is probably located on military bases. The main apparatus.
Could be. It could be. Apparently it is being rolled out on military bases across the U.S. Exactly which ones, I'm not sure, but for those of you that live near military installations, you would understand that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, we could have, a brief discussion time about the call if you like, and maybe we'll wrap up early tonight. We tried to, to get as many questions answered as we could. Bryan is just one person, and but he'll be back with us again. He's becoming a part of the community, and I believe that he's in for the long haul. So if you didn't get your question answered tonight, rest assured that you'll get a chance to ask, again at a later time. Okay. So I think we covered a lot tonight in this past 2.5 hours. Excuse me, but some congestion here. Okay, are there more questions, comments about his presentation?
Derek.
Yeah?
This is Tom again.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I was on the call last Saturday. I came in at the end of it when you were discussing about being in contact with him, and or what last week, I forget which day it was. Lo and behold, you were able to be in touch with him.
Yeah,
and
by some miracle. It wasn't easy.
Wow, that's wonderful. I hope he's in it for the long haul, and
well, he intends to be.
He seems to know it. He's able to answer everybody's questions in a wide variety of issues that we face, and he's even brought some new angles into why we're being targeted and what this targeting is all about. And I think that's very, very, very good at the social engineering aspect of it. Especially when I look at all the years I've been targeted, there's a purpose behind this. And
he explained that people are selected.
People are making money off it, getting rich off it too, and
probably yeah.
But I think that would be a great. I think it's one of the great things about to happen is William Binney's survey, and I haven't had a chance to fill it out yet, but I've been in contact and planning on doing that. But I actually met William Binney once at the Left Forum a few years ago.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's
yes,
right.
I did, and I told him about this, and he was very interested. And I told him what was happening to me, and he was very, very interested. And and then but he had to run off and catch a plane, so I really didn't get a chance to talk to him after he was on a panel, and but he seemed very, very interested, and I said, boy, this would be fantastic. And then lo and behold, he gave a presentation at the in Belgium at that mind control conference, with and now it's this. So I think it was like when he was, when he first became a whistleblower, it took many years for him to be validated of what he had said was true, and he probably, was persecuted quite a bit, and now he's defending us to a certain extent. And I think that could be a and with this Bryan is just so well spoken that I think that he has a lot to say, and that would quite give us
hold on
credibility. That would give us a lot of credibility, I think. Hello? Did we go offline?
No.
Hello? I don't want to keep talking forever, but
I think Derek said hold on for a minute.
Okay.
Tom, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Sorry, I'd take that call, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think that he's a very nice man, William Binney. I when I met him, I never forget that meeting. But the fact that there's this survey, it just seems like that could give us a lot of hope with somebody like him backing us, because we've been going through this for so many years, but I think this could be a good thing. And I think, through William Binney, maybe somebody like even Julian Assange or something could release documents that would, validate what some of the things that Bryan is saying. And I think just like he was able to do for William Binney, when Binney was called a liar and everything else and discredited, but Edward Snowden and Julian Assange sort of made what he first said was the truth, shocking truth. But that's why people are going to prison, like who was it, Chelsea Manning, well, he originally was like for 35 years, and they got pardoned, thank God. But for telling the truth, that anybody's a whistleblower, they really come after hard, as like Bryan's being targeted right now. It's so.
Well, this is kind of different, Tom. This is more than telling the truth. This is something that affects everybody personally. It's not just documents, government documents that people can read online and say, oh, that's nice. This is something that affects everybody directly.
Okay.
This is a very important event that is rolling out here. And
well, it is.
This is, he's talking about
the deep state. The deep state.
Just that there's 1 to 2 million people that was floated around the office, 1 to 2 million victims. So that kind of gives us some numbers to work with that we haven't had before.
Yes.
Wow. It's not only the TI victims, to me he's confirmed the takeover of this country, which I've always thought was happening, but really it was kind of an assumption. But, it's really hitting me hard that theory is closer to the truth than I've ever heard. And I'm really devastated. I'm just sitting here. It's like I can't deny it anymore. I can't assume. Now I'm really thinking this is real, this takeover of this country. Just before that conversation opens up, Derek, I want to thank you for moving those questions along so well. You really did a good job keeping that rolling. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I tried to get as many questions answered as I could. I would probably have did it a different way, but whatever. People got a lot of the questions answered. But, we don't have to have all of our questions answered tonight, okay? He does plan to be with us. Hopefully we can get some donations so that he can be in a safer environment than being parked by the side of the road or wherever he's at, and in a car where he's vulnerable. So, and he's also mentioning that he would prefer donations that could reach him instantly, like a Western Union or something, because PayPal would take a couple of days, and he wants to get rolling pretty quick. So he wants to get $100 in gas, if possible. And that would get him rolling, and to Phoenix, Arizona is his destination at this time. So, guys, whatever you could do. I have made a donation myself, I will say. And so hopefully we can get enough that if we can get, and I gave him 10, I will just say that. If we get 10 more people to give him 10, he'd have 100. 10. I'm not the greatest at math, right? 9 more people to give him 10, we'd have 100. So, so he would be on the road, and that's all he needs to get to Phoenix. So there it is. That's the goal. But anyway, I think Bryan did a very good job. He was very, very thorough in the answers that he gave of what he knew about. And what he's talking about is a very extensive program of social engineering, as he calls it. So I do know that people have, some people have passed around the recording that we did last week, the podcast. So I would only assume that this podcast will get passed around as well. So hopefully this will, get passed around far and wide. So perhaps some relevant, important eyes and ears will receive this information.
Yeah, hey, Derek, this is Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hey, it sounded like reading your letter, the bulletin, that you may have his private number. I don't need it, it just reminds him that I'm close to the border, Reading here to Oregon, it's only a couple hundred miles, and then wherever he's at, above there, he can come to my place, spend the night or spend a week. Let him know that if you do talk to him again privately.
Dutch.
Yeah.
He's not near where you're at. He's in Colorado.
Oh, okay. All right. He's okay. Gotcha. So okay. The thought was there anyway. So
sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's much appreciated. Dutch.
Okay. Well, I'll step aside just so someone else can speak. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate your offer.
All righty.
Okay, is somebody trying to speak?
Well, this is still Tom McClelland. I'm still on, and I guess I think we were talking about him being in contact with William Binney, which he mentioned he planned to in the future, and he's heard about him, and so I think that would be a credible thing to do. I think possibly somebody who would expose this would be like this mass social engineering that's been going on that he's exposing and that all of us TIs are a part of. I think that this is huge, and this is like something that might be like the church committee hearings or something like that, or could be, and I think that it's something that needs to be exposed, and some like maybe possibly the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They might be, I think, one group to contact. WikiLeaks, maybe this information could be sent to them. Julian Assange's organization.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Am I the only one that's concerned for his safety? That I was hoping that he could skip the country like Julian Assange and Snowden did. That if somebody's going to blow the whistle at such proportions, I was hoping that he wouldn't have to remain in the U.S. I just fear that I just fear for his safety so much.
I think that's I think his safety would be a valid point. That's he's risking his life. I think. And even traveling in a car, he could be targeted.
Yeah, I just fear that blowing the whistle on it's such an important topic to blow the whistle on. I just fear he's marked, and when Snowden and Assange, he blew the whistle, they skipped town completely, and I just wish that he could do the same.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like they were working for the government, like contractors, and they had top secret government information that they were exposing, corruption, but.
And they were able to leave the country when they blew the whistle, and I fear that maybe he doesn't want to, but I just fear that he should leave the U.S. I think.
Well, I mean, Bryan is not wanted by the law. He's not, as far as I know, there are no warrants for his arrest, and the police are not looking for him. He will probably be somewhat safer overseas, but then he would probably be not as effective as being here.
And I guess I thought maybe he could be as effective by long distance because of the other two I just mentioned are very effective. But if I just fear for his life. That's all.
Well, Snowden could be a lot more effective if he was here. Right now he has tremendous appeal, but that's because he has notoriety, and he does because he has government documents to back up his claim. Let's see. Bryan doesn't have government documents probably that I know of, but he does have a compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's able to convince some others to jump ship, the way that he did, he'd have something really compelling, but at the same time, not illegal. So he's not at risk of arrest. So like Assange would be, and like Snowden would be. So he doesn't really have to leave the U.S. So he just basically has to elude the group stalkers, which are hassling him at the moment. I'm not sure how, and they're probably trying to frighten him and intimidate him. Whether they'll really carry out those threats, we don't really know. And he doesn't either, and he suspects that it's intimidation, but he doesn't really know whether they'll carry out those threats or not. But in his position, though, he is very vulnerable, and he needs to be in shelter. And if he was there, he could more easily assess the situation and decide, what his options are. But right now, he's very vulnerable.
I came up with a crazy idea, Derek. Somebody mentioned his driving to Phoenix. That's very real. I have a crazy idea. What happens if we get some people to just follow him on the highway along the way for a couple of hours?
He's going
crazy, right?
Is he really?
Well,
we got people in Denver, we got people in Colorado Springs. I don't know about New Mexico. New Mexico, I'm not sure. He's going to take the southern route, so we'd be going through Santa Fe, Albuquerque, areas like that.
Well, it's possible. We'd have to talk about that maybe Monday or something.
Just an hour down the highway following him, or 2 hours in case something happens. Turn around and come back, and then the next I know it's crazy. It's really crazy. But it's a good point, the woman who just brought that up, because that drive can be very desolate, especially the part coming out of Colorado going through New Mexico. It's all desert. You can go hours without seeing anything.
That could be true. Yeah, it sounds like a dangerous trip.
Unless he goes through the mountains, but that in itself it's a harder drive. But I've taken that drive a lot to Tucson, and it's desolate.
Mm-hmm.
Almost scary desolate, even if you have a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Well, we need some volunteers in Colorado or New Mexico, or
I don't know anybody in New Mexico. Do you?
There are a few.
It would have to be Santa Fe, Taos. Albuquerque's a little too west. God, it's in Truth and Consequences. You go through nothing towns. Nothing.
Hmm.
I suppose he could be going through the mountains. That way you're going to run into a lot more people that way. Except coming through Grand Canyon down to Phoenix, and then that's a little desolate. But I don't know any other way but those two ways.
The Grand Canyon down to Phoenix?
Well, you can go across the mountains, like through Aspen, and it's mountainous, very mountainous, and you go through the Independence Pass, which is scary as hell, almost like one lane, and then you go to Utah, and then you go south. But you're passing through the mountains, you're passing through ski areas, you're passing through areas where people live. But it takes longer, too. It's a harder drive. It's not. The other way is all highway.
Yeah, I don't know, Barbara. We'd have to see, who would be willing to do something like that. The most active person I know in Colorado is Santu, and Mark. Well, I probably shouldn't mention his name, but there's a guy in Colorado Springs that might be interested in helping. I'd have to run this by him. But other than that, I don't know.
It was a long shot. Just an idea came to my brain.
Oh.
Phoenix, Arizona seems like a dangerous place to go nowadays with Homeland Security and everything.
It does.
I don't know. It seems like there's, things are getting worse there with the immigrant situation, so there's going to be a lot more militant the type of people who we might think are the types who are targeting us in that area, more concentrated, I would think. I don't know, but that's what I'd think. With Homeland Security and everything, they're pretty. That Sheriff Arpaio or something. What a horrible person. Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of. I just hope he's going to be safe there. There might be some good people there, who are fighting against him.
He'll probably be all right. He'll probably be all right in Phoenix, at least as well as other places.
I hope so. I don't know, because of the immigrant situation now and the border wall supposedly being built, and with Donald Trump.
That is such nonsense, though. I don't know if that's really going to lie.
Well, it is nonsense, but they're serious about it. I mean, another thing about Trump, as we're talking about Trump, there's an article that came out recently about the young Donald Trump, whose father's youngest brother is named John Trump. This is really weird. I've thought about this, how far it possibly could go, about the reading about this young Donald Trump and his association with his uncle, who his middle name is Donald John Trump. He was in the Manhattan Project in New York. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that. He was, and I heard part that to make the atomic bomb, and young Donald Trump became very close to him. He might have been one of the head leaders of this project, one of the top physicists, and he had connections to some of Telsa's patents, which were used to make the trigger for the atomic bomb.
There was something about Tesla's project. And there was a correlation there. Yeah, okay.
So now MK Ultra seemed to have grown out of the Manhattan Project, that the security people, the security that ran, kept the security for the Manhattan Project, kept the security for the MK Ultra project. And I think that a lot of what we're, at least on my end, I haven't, as much as happened to me, I haven't gone into a lot of it. But I think that I think that there could be a connection. I mean, there's some devious things that happened, with MK Ultra, and since most of the records were destroyed, the 130 some odd projects there were, basically the only thing that came out of it was like maybe Frank Olson getting doused with LSD and pushed out of a window, and others. But it was much more. It went far beyond what I believe what was exposed. A lot of it was covered up, church committee hearings and everything. So I don't know. Just I could see how Donald Trump could have a connection. To me, he's a very sinister person, and I think there were probably sinister people back in, why everything now is so secret. And I think that possibly Donald Trump has more information, than we realize, connections, possibly because of his uncle. And then his father's lawyer was connected with Richard Nixon, and Richard Nixon was vice president when MK Ultra began. So I guess it seems like we can talk all about what's happening to us, but I think that we have to convince people. We need a whistleblowers or something, that sort of a thing, to be effective. And I think that somebody like William Binney is a good person to have on our side.
Yeah, William Binney and
the other man.
Right.
The other that's part of this survey. Kirk. Weeby. Okay. But anyway.
And Bryan.
And Bryan, right.
He's definitely a whistleblower.
He definitely is. What about that guy who was going across the United States? He seems like he would fit in with Bryan to a certain degree. If you remember who I'm talking about?
You're talking about David Voigt.
Yes, I am. He's still going, I think. I don't know.
No, not right now. You're talking about David Voigt. Derek, did you know that Linda's number, people on Linda's number are trying to get unmuted and they can't, and it's a mess because a lot of people are talking and then you guys keep talking and can't hear them. Anyway, I just wanted to say this. I was targeted heavily on the Navajo reservation. I enjoy driving across country where there are less people rather than more people. If he can run into some good TIs, that's one thing. But I do enjoy that. But I was heavily targeted. So he had I saw someone working when I came out of the restroom in one of a stop, and then I had to drive about 100 miles before I got to another stop. And during that time, I was in a motorhome with a U-Haul and a truck on the back. And what he had done, I knew he had done something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was pulling funny, so I stopped in the middle of nowhere, and my truck was halfway off the U-Haul. So he had messed with the strap there. But so you can't. That's the only place I would avoid is the Navajo reservation. It's pretty big, but apparently there are perps in that area. Anyway, I was going to add that you all were talking about at that time, the different routes. People did try to accompany David Voigt while he was doing his walk across the country, and he got about halfway, I think. I'm not sure what he's now, but he's heavily targeted. His family has been targeted, so he's kind of put a stop to it for now, but he'll probably get back into it too. Anyway, I don't know what's going on with these calls, because after Bryan left, Linda and Donna and others were trying to get unmuted, and they couldn't. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, I don't know why they can't unmute. If they're in this call, they just press *6. They can self-unmute.
Yeah, they'll have to call in again. I just hung up from Linda's number, because I called in on Linda's number. I didn't know you were doing it tonight. So when I couldn't get unmuted either, I thought, well, this is crazy. So I called in on your regular Saturday and Monday number. That was the only way it worked.
Okay. Well, if they want to, I'm not sure what the issue is. If they're talking and want to be heard, they'll have to call in like you did.
Derek, if they called in like I do with a group of people, sometimes the conference call for people that their phones won't work and they've been calling the conference calls, whoever called your call has to be the one to unmute. Only that person can unmute to get for everybody to speak that's on the conference call that called in.
Yeah,
so
they can self-unmute, though, so that's not really an...
Well, that's what I mean, but it has to be the person that actually dialed into this call that unmutes, and they'll unmute the whole group.
That is true. So whoever is called in would have to do that.
Can I say something about my call? Hello?
Yeah.
The thing was, we had a guest who said, "Would you like me to stream Derek's call so we could all listen to it from there?" Because they kept sending people over to the call, and it got very confusing. And even if you were unmuted, but you couldn't be heard because this call was streaming over to my room. It wasn't that nobody could talk and be heard in Derek's room from my room. Does that make sense?
No. Yeah.
Why am I hearing this? Lonnie, can you hear me? We weren't trying to cut you out, and we weren't trying to keep anybody from talking. Nobody could ask questions from my call. I hope that was okay with you that we streamed your call, Derek. People wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay. Okay, I'm going back to my call now because I got to take care of that room. Thanks, Derek.
Okay, you're welcome.
You think we should get off and let Linda have her call?
That's fine with me.
Just asking. Are you going to do tomorrow night now or not?
I was thinking of, I thought Linda said she was going to come over here, and if she was, I was going to let Linda do tomorrow night. But it looks like she is running her call.
Yeah, she is.
So, I don't know, I might let Frank do, well, no, Frank probably already did his call. I have to think about that. if I do, it'll probably be for a short time, not the entire time. Because even if I didn't do the call, there'd be a lot of people calling in that would not be informed of that.
Yeah, right.
So I'll think about that. We might review the call tonight and give some ideas and so forth. Or we might just talk about general things. But anyway, I think that Bryce, hopefully he'll be able to continue with the community. But I think this is a major step forward for everyone, and we'd like to have him back in maybe about a month or so that he can answer more questions. I hope you got your questions answered.
Well, thank you, Derek, for your making this possible. And
you're welcome. So, hopefully over the next 2 weeks we'll decide what we can learn from Bryan, what more we can learn from him, and how we can utilize this information, this vital information, what he has set forth for us, confirmed a lot of the things that we knew already and gave us information about things that maybe we suspected. And plus we learned new things. So it's quite interesting. I thought the information about the hive mind is critical for the general public because it affects them directly, that information. So those hearing about that, it might raise an eyebrow or two to think that cities across the country are being herded into a certain type of mentality, influenced to vote certain ways. That would explain a few of these elections we've had. It would explain the crime rates in some areas. It would explain the violence that has erupted lately. Last summer we had a series of things, of violent incidents that I didn't know if it would ever settle down, but it finally did. And in this year, that Charlottesville thing was just off the hook, just unbelievable. But I feel, and maybe many others as well, that this is something that was instigated. So, very interesting times in which we live nowadays, and the technologies that we're faced with. Society needs to be aware of this so that they can make decisions about these types of things. And the county of Santa Clara, the city of Oakland, and even the state of California, they're all looking at seriously at the technology as much as they can find along this line, and screening this technology and deciding whether or not the police can use these types of devices. The police and sheriffs and deputies, technologies of social control. I mean, if they were to hear Bryan's testimony, they're already alarmed. This would give them more reason to be alarmed.
It seems that the police forces are experimenting with a lot of different types of technologies nowadays that Bryan, that I think that some of the things that Bryan's corporation he worked for probably had similar types of technologies.
Well, probably so.
Just like the police in New York, they can have technology, they can see through walls and that sort of thing. It gets really complicated. What they can do with that.
Uh-huh.
And oh boy. I thank you. I've been heavily targeted myself, and I just feel like somebody like when Bryan comes along, it's a ray of hope, and I hope he's going to stay safe. I think that's the most important thing, and then hopefully what can be utilized with how to utilize what he has to say to bring out the truth. And there's going to probably be a lot of resistance, but how that's what we've been struggling with for so long. I feel like I've been targeted from almost the time I was a young child up until, from the 1950s all the way till now, and it's never ended. And I just like living in a prison without walls.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, I've been targeted just about everywhere I've ever been, and family members too. So when he starts talking about social engineering, and I think of the town I grew up in, and it's some of the things that I'm starting to put together that 2 years ago I didn't realize in that regard, with the targeting that perhaps of other generations of my family. So I hope that I think this would be a good thing to get exposed. I'm sorry, I always wanted to. My mom died 2 years ago. I always wished that she could have some headway could have been made. But she'll never get to see my freedom. And I don't know if, she probably thought, if I'd mentioned something like being a target, that I was a nutcase or something. So, but it'd be good just to, be able to prove that the government is actually involved in this, and people, as many as now 2 million or something. That's just a kind of, and I think that's quite a possibility, because I always believe that only a small portion of us who are on the phone or on the websites or that sort of thing, we're only a small portion of the people. When you talk about the homeless populations and that, some of them might not even realize they're being targeted, and but there was two more articles that have come up recently about the Cuban hearing sonic in the embassies, Cuban embassies, and also in Russia. So, but it's just more. I think that it's just another aspect of our targeting, and if people can believe that, if they can believe William Binney about Verizon, AT&T, they and every phone call and every email is all monitored or whatever for years and years and years in big databases. Every person in the United States, cameras every minute of our lives, we're being filmed, and that's the purpose of it. And then this social engineering fits right into that, whatever our society is turning into, and it's like the Adolf Hitler's dream, and I think it has a lot to do with what the Nazi scientists in Germany were conjuring up, and then they were brought over the United States, Project Paperclip. Those are the kinds of the whatever. That's the secret. A lot of the secrets of what the Russians did in mind control, and the Nazis did in mind control, came to the United States. Now there's these social engineering projects going on and possibly millions of people lives being destroyed, and it's horrific. So, and I have a brother I believe is being targeted, and he's suffering much worse than I am, and if it was just for him, something could break through to help him, it would be worth it for me. So, I'm just recently I've been thinking about some of these things like social engineering, genetics, and the town I grew up in, surrounded by all the Battelle laboratories and defense contractors and Air Force Base, and everything was military. And the whole, where I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, that's right on Broad Street, right? The lady who targeted you in your old website that you had and took it over, and all of a sudden she's disappeared. How strange. And she's from Columbus, Ohio. I don't. I think she's. Well, I don't like to use the word perp, but I think that you were targeted when you had to go through all these legal proceedings, and they stole your website from you. I didn't think that was right. And you faced all kinds of accusations. So, thank you, Derek. I'm going to say goodbye. I don't want to keep rambling on.
Yeah, it must be pretty late there.
I'm sorry, what is that?
I guess it's pretty late on the East Coast now.
Yes, it is. It's 12:15. So, and I guess I might as well. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Well, it's rather quiet tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and close up the call. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And maybe we'll be on for tomorrow night for a while as well.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Hey, thanks.
Okay. All right, good night.